Okay, Memorial Day, it's Murph Day, heading over to Cow Harbor CrossFit, gonna do Murph, that is, for you laymen, 1 mile run, 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then after that, another mile run, do that all with weight vest. Should be an awesome time. I am recording this episode using the Z6, so we'll see how that comes out and if anything actually sounds usable. But yeah, so off to Cow Harbor, gonna hit the workout, we're gonna see how it goes. Coming in. First mile, wrapping up. Piece of cake. I think that was about a 5-minute mile. Feel good on it. Feel real good about it. All right, now the real fun starts. All right, out on the second run. Okay, we are in the office and we are again recording with the Z6, so I have basically no idea how this is going to sound or how this is going to look, and if I'm glancing up, it's because I'm actually using a monitor, because I don't know if any of this is going to be in focus, and I didn't really spend the time to read the instruction manual. So I meant to do a whole wrap-up at Cow Harbor after Murph, but yeah, it turns out exercising for almost an hour kind of knocked me out, and I didn't really feel like talking to a camera at all. So we're back at the office. What I wanted to wrap up on kind of the Z6 series of sorts is one of the #1 things I wish I knew about the Z6 before I started messing with it, and would have avoided a lot of poorly exposed images, for better or worse. Still like the camera, but it was just a setting that I had changed and it drove me nuts. So without keeping it a mystery, the setting is called, it's called Apply Settings to Live View. It's in the custom settings in, it's like D8 or something like that, or D4 in the custom control settings. What that setting does is makes the camera operate like a traditional, or not traditional, like a mirrorless camera. Meaning that when you look through the EVF, what you see is what you get, okay? So what that means, I adjust the exposure on the back, you know, on my shutter speed or whatever. When I look through the EVF, I press the button, that is exactly what the camera is actually going to take, okay? So that's kind of an advantage of a mirrorless system, because there's no guessing. You don't even need to chimp and look down at the back of the screen, because basically, other than maybe focus, you should know exactly what you're getting every time you press that button. That's a really cool advantage. So, in my brilliant wisdom, I turned that off, because I was reading some settings, because like I wasn't getting a good feel for the way the EVF was working. So I actually turned that off because it said something along the lines of, oh, it'll operate more like a traditional DSLR, and I thought that meant something. It does mean something. It doesn't mean something that I wanted. So what basically happened is I turned that off, and when you turn that off, it turns the viewfinder into basically an optical viewfinder, or almost like a video camera on auto. So it's always, when you're looking through that viewfinder, always gonna show you a version of the image that you can actually see, but it has no connection anymore to the settings in the camera. So what would happen is I was occasionally forgetting about that, and you heard me complain about this in other videos, where I'm like, the meter is saying one thing, the back of the screen looks perfectly exposed, I don't know what's going on. So what I had basically done is made that happen. Because I remember when I first got the camera, it seemed to be this whole what you see is what you get thing. I changed that setting, didn't realize it. Oh, well, I realized I changed the setting, didn't realize it had that effect. And then I wound up turning it back on, right? So I turned it back on, shot with it a little bit at Cow Harbor, and like oh, that makes life a lot easier. You're back to this whole what you see, what you get situation. And the exposures are spot on based on what I see through the EVF. But now here is the interesting caveat here. And I don't know if this is the case for all mirrorless, but it's definitely the case here. One of the things that throws me the most with using the EVF is when I go, I get my focus, take my picture. When it's frantic action and you take that shot, it's not that there's a blackout, but there's almost like a blurring effect between shots. Whereas if I'm using an optical viewfinder on the D5, I go focus, take the shot. I have a much better instinct if that shot actually was in focus or not. And this is not a knock in any way on the focus system on this camera or any of the cameras. The issue is when you snap that frame with a DSLR, it's instant and you know if it's in focus or not, really without even looking at the back of the camera. With this, when this mirror live view, this EVF that shows you exactly what it is on, you actually have this weird little it's not lag, it's like blur almost. So at least me, not used to it, don't know if I'm actually getting the shot. Now here's the interesting thing, because I've been shooting like 3 weeks with the camera in this other setting, where I turned off the supply live view settings, and that's not a problem anymore. When it's in that mode, it's actually easier to know that the camera is still in focus, because it's just, I guess, the way the viewfinder is working, it's much less processor intensive. And so I know that I'm still in focus. So it's a weird trade-off here, because if you want the little advantage that the EVF's gonna give you with it, this what you see, what you get thing, you might wind up screwing up your exposures a little bit. But when you have it on, you definitely, for me at least, struggle to be confident that the shots are in focus. Now the funny thing is though, sum that all up, go to the computer, look at the shots, they're basically all awesome and in focus, and my hit rate is higher generally than when I'm shooting with a traditional DSLR. So, one thing I wish someone really just spelled out very clearly for me is the effect of this setting that's kind of buried into the camera. Apply live view settings to EVF, is that what it is? Yeah, apply settings to live view, is all it's called. Really try it out and see if you like the Z6 more this way or less this way. And just know that the setting's in there if you want to mess around with it. So, that's it for this. Off to Granite Games next week. And yeah, that's all I got. Check it out. Yeah.